15-year-old Limpopo teenager Lufuno Mavhinga was laid to rest by her family yesterday. She committed suicide after a video of her being bullied and attacked went viral. Her story has not only put a spotlight on bullying and suicide, but the question of whether there is enough support for young people and teenagers who experience transitional phases in their lives and do not know how to deal with them. Well, I'm joined by Transitional Life Coach Rachel Malatsi, who will be giving us more when it comes to the various life phases that parents and both teenagers should be alert to. Very good morning to you, Rachel. Thank you so much for your time. Now, before you and I speak, I came across a really shocking revelation where a Bloomberg study reveals that South Africa is the second most stressed country in the world, speaking about how research has found that 23.6% of teenagers are struggling with feelings of hopelessness and sadness. That's really quite startling.
Yes, good morning, and thank you so much for having me on the show this morning. Yeah, the stats are there, and like you just mentioned, it is shocking, and it is the sad reality that we're living in, and that we need to wake up to and find alternative ways of curbing or helping our teens and helping other segments also. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
And let's go back now and talk about what the phases are like when, you know, you grow from being a baby to a toddler to a child, and then you go through your teenage stage. What is it that parents should be aware of when it comes to the transition and the phases that children go into?
Well, you know, for our formative years, you know, we have, you know, as we're growing up, forming those opinions and finding ways of life. And I mean, in the old days, there were ways that it used to be done by Africans in terms of, you know, being ushered into those different phases of your life, you know, as a young kid welcomed into the world. And, you know, as a young child also, you know, there'll be those, as you go into those different phases, there'll be rituals and you'll be initiated into those. And in the absence of that, you know, and in the kind of lifestyle that we're now living, we're saying in the absence of that, you know, what do parents have, you know, to help them, to assist their kids, to support their kids? Because, I mean, we know the times that we're living in, having to go to work, having to support our families, having to provide a certain lifestyle, you know. And when it comes to teenagers these days, I mean, I can only think back to the times when I was a teenager and what I had to cope with. And when we look at the teenagers today and we look at the challenges that they're facing, you know, having to deal with peer pressure, you know, and now our kids are living virtually, you know, they live in the cyberspace. And yeah, you know, parents need to get help in terms of helping their kids navigate that. And also the kids themselves need to also, you know, be taught certain skills and to be supported as they navigate this phase of their lives. So that's where life coaching, I must say, comes as a tool or as another way of you know, it's an emerging way or an emerging career that is gaining popularity in South Africa, and it's been used by parents who, you know, are aware of it. And I think to the conversation this morning is to talk about more does it get accessible to the others that do not necessarily have the money to access life coaches.
We learned that, you know, just looking back to the really heartbreaking story of a 15-year-old girl, Lufuno Mavhinga, who allegedly took her own life. because of the pressure that she faced from a bullying incident, which also translated into cyberbullying. Her brother spoke at the memorial service saying this is a time, perhaps an opportunity to reflect on the seriousness of bullying and the type of conversations that parents and teachers should be having with their children. What are these type of conversations that are necessary for situations like this, to prevent situations like this and help teenagers cope in the middle of situations like Lufuno's one?
It's very sad. It's a sad reality that we're living in. And as Lufuno's passing brings to our attention or to the forefront the discussions that must be held. And part of those discussions are really the bullies also come from our community. And it's really for as much as we will call them out, for kids to know that we can openly talk to your parents. And in the absence of your parents, there's an adult, there's a community leader, there is somebody that you can talk to and to express your feelings, to express how this is impacting you. Because, I mean, I can only just imagine, what happens when you go through such a traumatic thing of being bullied, and it just goes viral online, How do you get up to face, your peers and to cope with it? So part of those conversations is for us to know that it's okay to call these people out. And again, it's okay for these people also to be called in and to be also taught, social life skills, to be taught skills of knowing that there's a better way of gaining popularity. There's a better way, there's a much more resourceful way of living with others and like I say, gaining popularity, because when you post that and it goes viral online, the minute you press send or share online, they need to know there's consequences to all that behavior. It doesn't mean because it's online excuse me, it doesn't have the same weight as if, you're doing it live and you're being reprimanded. So they need to understand that this virtual space that they're living in, there's still consequences to their behavior in that space.
And so very lastly, when it comes to some of the solutions that are available, there's on one element, there's coaching and then there's therapy. What are the differences there?
Well, with coaching, we really focus on you are a whole human being. You have the resources in you. You just, for a period of time, have somebody that teaches you. Like I'm an NLP coach, so there's NLP techniques, and NLP standing for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. There's techniques that you teach where a person gets to, understand that self-respect, self-love, it starts with me. What I want to see in others, I shouldn't project the kind of project things onto others. I actually need to work on myself and build the kind of life I want for myself. So really a coach is really just helps or supports you in building that action plan, and most importantly, taking action. Unlike therapy where you really just go and, a lot of your history, a lot of what your formative years, all the traumas, just a lot of background of history, and in terms of healing those and going through that. So that would be the biggest difference between a coach and a therapist. You just come to a coach to say, I'm at this point. It doesn't necessarily mean there's something wrong with me. I just need to move. I feel stuck here, or I have this kind of behavior. It's not serving me. I just lack a certain tool or technique to help me to move to the next level of my life. And that's where a coach will come in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and that insight coming from transitional life coach Rachel Malatsi, giving us a sense of how to manage teenagers, especially during the transitional phases of their lives.